lyrical metal maniacs, thrashers, punks, death metal delinquents, grindcore freaks, old school rockers, new school hardcore kids, and everyone else in between. This is the Solid Steel Syndicate podcast, baby.
Top of the morning to you, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Solid Steel Syndicate podcast. I am your host, Irish J. Irons. Today, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite albums of all time, one of my favorite albums from this particular band, as well as one of my favorite albums, period. I remember... Just imagine if you're like 8 years old, you're hanging out with your friends all day and your friends are a little older than you. I was 8. My friends were probably 12, 13 years old. And we were out and we were building forts in the woods and we were doing some things that we probably shouldn't be doing at our age. My friend's dad had a pretty healthy supply of beer and some other drinks that we would sneak out and we would take with us out to the fort and stuff like that. And so just had an amazing day, just hanging out and laughing and joking and being way too young to drink, but doing it anyway. And so then that night I'm sleeping over at their house. It was two brothers, and the older brother was Kevin. The younger brother was Greg. And so I'm sleeping in Kevin's room on the floor. And I knew a little bit about heavy metal, or at least hard rock. I knew about Van Halen and ZZ Top. I knew about Black Sabbath. Not that ZZ Top is heavy metal, but I'm just saying like guitar-driven music. Van Halen was definitely something I was into at that point. And then, I knew of Black Sabbath. I'd heard of Iron Maiden. I knew a little bit about Motley Crue. I'm not sure if they were even on the radio yet. This would have been during after Too Fast for Love. This would have been probably during the Shout at the Devil period. So I don't think any of their stuff was on the radio quite yet. I had some magazines and stuff with them in it, so I knew a little bit about them. So we're laying down, and Kevin gets up and puts a record on, and it's Black Sabbath. Again, I'm 8 years old. And I usually sleep with at least a nightlight on or something at this point still. So he turns the lights out and Black Sabbath comes on. And wow, the tonality of that record and the just Ozzy's voice, the way he kind of winds through it and the riffs and the heaviness and the guitar sounds that were so different from anything I had heard up to this point. Just very heavy, very dark. Dark would definitely be something that captured that album. So now I'm laying there wide awake. It's probably like 1 o'clock in the morning. And that the record ends. After he flipped it over, we listened to the whole thing. I couldn't sleep at all. He puts on another record. And this one, now I'm pretty like kind of freaking out a little bit. And their house just always seemed like a haunted house or something. Their house had been around for a long time and they had lived there for their whole lives, but their house had been around for a long time. It's probably a historic house in the town that we lived in. So it seemed like a haunted house. And we talked about that stuff all day. And we were out in the woods. There was probably like 10 of us, but we would try and scare each other, especially when it started getting dark and stuff like that. So I'm laying there and Kevin puts on a record and I look over and I see the album cover. He lays it like at the end of his records, at the edge of his record player, and he lays it there, and I see the freaking Number of the Beast album cover, and then I hear "Woe to You of Earth and Sea," and I'm just like, oh my God, like I'm not gonna sleep. And I don't think I did sleep until probably like 3 or 4 in the morning. That album scared the hell out of me. But at the same time, I was like, yeah, I think this is what my music is. Like, I think I found it. Because like I said, I knew about Van Halen and some other more like guitar driven kind of bands at that point, but they weren't necessarily classified as heavy metal. So I was searching for something, and once I met Kevin and Greg, they had all these records, all these albums. They got me into all this stuff. I would sit and listen to Shout at the Devil with Greg, and we would pretend he was who did he use? I think he was usually Vince Neil, so he would sing, and I would always pick Mick Mars because he looked the most evil on the record jacket, and he had the big like shoulder piece on in that album cover, and he looked like someone from Mad Max. So I would always be him. But we just had a lot of fun with music and with metal particularly, and those guys really shaped my music taste to come. I would discover Metallica Master of Puppets a year or two down the road past this point, when one of my other older friends gave it to me to check out. But at this point, we were listening to Judas Priest, the Scorpions, Black Sabbath, Motley Crue, all these bands, earlier stuff, Iron Maiden, of course, Helix. There was a lot of metal bands, and so Iron Maiden was something that was different for me, and something that scared me, and something that I also really liked at the same time. And I guess I kind of liked that feeling. So Iron Maiden has put out many classic albums, and with more than one singer. Today we're going to talk about the era of Bruce Dickinson, and I'm going to talk specifically about my favorite Iron Maiden album, Somewhere in Time. This album is near and dear to my heart. The songs in this album, to me, I feel like these are the most soulful. Like these are the most like they have the staying power, and they're songs that just, all Iron Maiden songs are amazing, and they're very easy to sing along with. They're very memorable. But this album just seems to have something with it that, well, again, I guess maybe it's in the title, Somewhere in Time. This album transcends time, and it's something that's caught up in the biosphere of time. And the guitar tones were something that was a little different at the time, and something that was borrowed for time to come. This band was already well established at this point, but I think this kind of took them to another level, and I'm sure it gained them a whole bunch of new fans when this record came out. The imagery was cool. It was perfect for the time period. Like I said, it came out in 1986, so there was a lot of things with like time travel, and I'm not sure if Terminator was out yet. It might have been, but those kind of movies, those kind of feelings were around at the time, and time travel was something that we were interested in that time period. And something that seemed like it was impossible, but at the same time, it was fun to discuss, fun to talk about, and fun to think about. So we'll just jump right into it with Somewhere in Time. The first song on this album, it couldn't be a more perfect song for an album. It's Caught Somewhere in Time, and just that opening riff, and the tonality of the guitar. And it's kind of whiny but not weak, and it's got a chorus effect on it. It's pretty compressed, and it's just something that's signifies to me time. It reminds me of something that would have to do with time, and that opening riff. And then when everyone comes in, and it almost kind of has like a proggy feel to it a little bit when the whole band comes in together. And I do feel like that style and that sound was borrowed many times, and has been used over and over again to some success for a lot of bands, and it should be, because it was a great sound. So and just like I said, the tonality, that main riff, it feels like they're maybe playing an octave there, and then the fast gallop with Steve Harris coming in with the bass. It's just so epic, and of course, Bruce Dickinson's vocals were what set this band apart from any of the other bands that I mentioned earlier, or any of the bands that I've talked about. I think pretty much in some of my past podcasts, his vocals are just above and beyond. He's an operatically trained singer, and it really shows. And he loves to flex his vocal muscles, and he loves to entertain. So he loves to give the fans what they want. And when you hear a whole audience singing a song, and you can hear them over the amplification, and it's literally the whole audience, and it's a big audience, you know that people are into what you're doing, and you know that people respect you as a singer and as a band. So but you can't, the vocal scales with the when Bruce does it, Somewhere in Time, it's just amazing. It's heavy metal. It's what heavy metal is. It's what it's supposed to be. Again, it's dealing with subject matter that's strayed from the norm, especially back then. It might be something now that maybe we feel like now time travel might be possible. I know I feel differently about it now than I did when I was younger. Again, it seemed like something that was never going to happen. But now, with some of the stuff and some of the technology that we have, maybe it is possible. I don't know. And some of our knowledge and some of the things that we can do now medically, and like I said, the technological advances that have taken place since this album has come out, it's leaps and bounds, and we're almost like another planet. So it's great subject matter, and this song is just amazing. One of my favorite songs of all time, and definitely one of my favorite songs on this album. And it's something that has stood the test of time. I feel like a lot of people's favorite albums are probably Number of the Beast and Peace of Mind, Power Slave, but I feel like this is up there too. I know a lot of people that say this is their favorite album, and it's certainly my favorite album as well. The next song, Wasted Years. Some of these songs, some of the feels for them have almost like, especially the lyrics, not necessarily musically, but almost like a rock band, like a 80s, like a hair band kind of subject matter about like being on the road or relationships. And Bruce definitely is not afraid. He's not afraid of any subject matter. So he's going to say what he wants. And he's not afraid to, okay, well, this sounds like that. Well, that's okay. This is what I'm writing, and this is what I mean by it. And people can perceive it, and they can come up with their own ideas as to what Bruce was trying to do. But Wasted Years, just such an epic beginning, and something that you hear the beginning and you instantly know what it is. I don't even know that anybody else has really tried to imitate anything even kind of like that beginning. And then when Nico's drums kick in, and it's just you got Bruce talking about being on the road. The video for this song is excellent, and Bruce talking about Close My Eyes and I Think of Home. Just again, that's something, the subject matter that would be like a ballad for some other bands, but Iron Maiden still kept this song heavy and interesting. And it's this song to me is about not wasting your time and just realizing that where you are now is where you're supposed to be. Don't think about the things that you did in the past, that don't beat yourself up over the things that you've done in the past. Definitely learn from your past, but that doesn't mean that's who you are now. That doesn't have to define you, and you don't have to stay there. You don't have to stay stuck in your past. So, and that's when he says, don't waste your time always searching for those wasted years. You can't go back. The only thing you can do is you can learn from what you've done. You can learn from your mistakes. You can learn from your music. You can learn from people around you, and you can move forward. So that's what this song is talking about. And just realizing that right now is the best time, because you're alive now, and this is where you are now. So you got to make the best of it, and you got to move forward. And again, it's not about living in the past. It's about living in the present while looking towards the future and preparing for the future and getting yourself set up so that you're in the best position you can be as you go forward. The next song on this is Sea of Madness. Steve Harris's bass, and everybody knows that Steve Harris was kind of the founder he was the founder of this band, and he was the captain of the band. And then when Bruce came in, there was a bit of a power struggle there. Bit of a power struggle there, which I think created some of the greatest music in the history of the world, and some of the best songs that anyone's ever heard. Because of that, I feel like they both up their game. They're both excellent at what they do. Obviously, me saying that, I feel like it's an understatement. Doesn't need to be said, but the push and pull between those two, always jockeying for position. I actually heard something last night that Bruce Dickinson actually had legs on his mic stand. He actually had extended legs put on his mic stand so that he could kind of nudge Steve Harris out of the way, because Steve is always trying to take the center of the stage. And Bruce felt like that was his place. And I feel like it's all their places. You can move around. I've been in bands, and I actually played bass, and a lot of time, well, I played guitar too, but the band that I played bass in, a lot of times I did end up standing in the center of the stage, because I moved around a lot. And I've accidentally hit some of my fellow bandmates in the face when I was swinging my guitar or bass around, totally by accident, but nobody wanted to stand near me. So I kind of just stood in the middle, and then the singer would come up. But it's okay. It doesn't matter where you're standing. It's how you perform. And this band in its entirety is a bunch of performers. And, you got the dual guitar attack, Bruce Dickinson's vocals, Nico McBrain on drums. And it's just, of course, Steve Harris, the great Steve Harris, probably the most influential bass player other than, you go back to like a Black Sabbath. But probably the most recent influential bass player for a lot of the metal bands that are around today and people that play bass. So yeah, Sea of Madness is a song about, I think it's about, this is how I look at it. When he talks about looking down and things that can only cause you sadness. It's just about your perspective on things, I think, and just again, in keeping with Wasted Years, just kind of being happy with where you are and what you are doing, and not worrying about too much about what's going on around you. There is a lot of sadness, and looking down can bring you sadness. So why do it? You know, even if you're a bird looking down towards the ground from the sky, again, it's something that could cause you sadness. And that chorus is another one of the choruses. Like I said, all their albums have staying power and they stick in your head, but that chorus just really sticks in your head a lot. And so another great song off of Somewhere in Time from Iron Maiden. The next song is Heaven Can Wait. Kind of starts out with that jangly riff, and then there's a little bit of a lead cutting through, and then the drums come in, and then everything kicks in. I love the way this band constructs songs. It's kind of formulaic, and they do it often, but it works every time, and it doesn't always sound the same somehow. So this is just another great song. And I think this song is about Heaven Can Wait is about, like, I'm not dying today. Today's not my day to go. Heaven's there, and someday I'll get there, but heaven can wait. That's not where I'm headed today. And again, that chorus, heaven can wait, the vocal scales, and I know I just nailed it. I probably thought that Bruce Dickinson was actually in studio with me. That was actually me, Irish J, singing Heaven Can Wait. It wasn't actually Bruce Dickinson. But those vocal scales, and again, another song that's so fun to sing along, and you watch the crowd and everybody's just singing it. And of course, most people can't touch Bruce Dickinson's vocals, and nobody's anywhere near the range that he's singing, but it's still fun to sing along, kind of pay homage, pay tribute to the man that's done what he's done for so many years and what he was doing at that time. So another really fun song to sing along to. It's got the bass kind of rumbling through there. It's almost like a gallop that Steve Harris does to come through, but it still maintains the structure of the song. And it's kind of, this song kind of forms around it, even though your ear is drawn to different things. This band is definitely one of the most, I would say, prime examples of the bass and the drums holding down the song, being in the pocket, and everything else forming around it. Even though you're not singing the bass line and you're not singing the drum riffs or the drum parts that Nico's playing, that's what the song is based around, and that's the core of the song. Like I said, that's the beauty of a song, and the beauty of the way they structure things is that your ear is drawn to so many different things, but that bass is just driving it the whole time. And you almost, if you're not paying attention, or if you don't necessarily know how to play music, I don't want to sound like a snob or anything, but if you don't know the structure of a song, you might not hear it right away. It might be something that you, because your ear's going to be drawn to the other things, the flashier things, the vocals, and of course, like I said, the twin guitars and some of the leads that they play. But just a great songwriting from this band, and the vocals and the lyrics are just, Bruce always comes through with different lyrics and things that you wouldn't necessarily think of, and just an amazing song, a group of amazing songwriters. The next song is The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner. It starts out slow, goes into some high notes, and then bam, the song picks up. There's leads cutting through the chorus, and then I love the guitar tones in this one. Again, this has kind of a prog rock feel, and again, the song structure goes along with the lyrics, how it kind of starts out slow. You just picture someone kind of warming up to go for a run, and then bam, when it kicks in, it's like, okay, now we're doing this, here we are. And the Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, it's just about, like I said, with some of the other songs, it's about going the distance. It's about not giving up the fight, and it's about continuing no matter how tired you are, no matter how much you want to quit. And it can be a lonely place, and it can be a place that's cathartic, and you can clear your head when you're in that zone, when you're in that area. And this song feels like if you were going for a long run, and you're in that space where you need something to get you through, this song has the vibe of that. And like I said, it's structured in a way that it's poetic. Like a lot of the bands, a lot of the albums, a lot of the songs that I talk about and discuss on Solid Steel podcast, they're poetic. The songs are poetic without the lyrics. The lyrics are poetic as well, and that's an amazing concept when you can combine a song that's poetic with lyrics that are poetic, and it just gives you the visuals and it gives you the feel, and you can feel what the people were going for, what the band was going for when they wrote the song, when they play the song, when they play the song live. You know what the audience is feeling when they get into the song and they get behind it and they start singing along. And I actually have heard fans and crowds hum Iron Maiden leads, hum Iron Maiden's bass parts, hum Iron Maiden's guitar parts. So this is a band that people are rabid for, and people are loyal to the death, fans of this band. And this band has stood the test of time through different lineups, different iterations, through Bruce Dickinson leaving and coming back. And this band is definitely something that deserves to be respected and admired for musically for what they've done. The next song on Somewhere in Time is Stranger in a Strange Land. Just another great song, especially back then, because like Dungeons and Dragons was a big thing, and a lot of Iron Maiden's lyrics kind of remind me of something that would be pulled from a Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing. Not all their lyrics, but there are a lot. And it was a big thing at the time. And this is what we knew. And I know people make fun of like, oh, dragons and swords lyrics and that kind of thing. And it's cool. I like all types of music. I like all types of metal and hardcore and, songs about the street, songs about people's lives, and songs about like horror movies and stuff like that. But the fantasy element, I like that too. Like I said, that's my era. I grew up during that time period where fantasy was a very big thing. Castles and goblins and ghouls and that kind of stuff got very, very popular. So when he's it starts out again with a beginning that you're kind of like, I don't want to say, it sounds like a rock song in the very beginning that you might actually hear on the radio. And it's kind of mysterious. And then there's some atmospheric guitars going on and uplifting. And then Bruce comes in with this story. The riffs are all great, and it all builds to the chorus. And it builds so well. And again, another song that you can't help but sing along to, Stranger in a Strange Land. And you picture different people picture different things. To me, like where he says land of ice and snow, back at the time when I heard this, I pictured like a Viking, like someone you would see on Game of Thrones. I pictured that. People just struggling to survive. And again, the time travel element. And again, that's another thing that's poetic. Just this album itself is poetic because this album does travel time. I've said it a lot. There's nothing that transcends time and space like music. And when you hear songs, it can create a time travel effect. I know I've lost a lot of people in my life, and I know that there's songs that I hear, and when I'm listening to that song, I go to a place in my brain where that person's still here. I go to that time period. There's bands and songs that I like that if not for certain people, I wouldn't like those songs at all. But I like those songs because they remind me of a specific time period. They remind me of a specific person and the things that we were doing and hanging out, and the things that we were going through at the time. And it takes you right back to that time period, that era. And like I said, Stranger in a Strange Land, it's about that, and just being someplace that you're not familiar with, someplace that's harsh, struggling and trapped inside this prison. It could be, there's so many storylines that you could pull from this song that it's almost like a choose your own adventure book, which was another thing that was popular back then. I don't think they even make them anymore, but you'd read a book and it would say, pick a, if you want to go to the left in this castle, turn to page 86. If you want to go to the right, turn to page 91. Then you turn to page 91. It's like, oh, you shouldn't have went this way. You're dead. But so it's Bruce Dickinson writes lyrics that a lot of times are things that can be taken pretty much one way, but there's also some songs that he's written that you can pull different things from it. He uses a lot of metaphors. So that's something that literarily is something that people can derive different things from and arrive at different places, even though he might not have meant that. It can be one line and it can be taken 10 different ways. He's a master of that as well. Just another great song. One of my favorite songs. And just on a personal note, one of my friends recently passed away. He had cancer. He's like he's like a year or two older than me. Yeah, he's 2 years older than me. And he's actually the person, I mentioned this earlier. That's funny that I mentioned this. It's ironic, but he's actually the person that we were talking about metal one day. He lived in my neighborhood, and he had lent me Judas Priest, and I was checking them out. I had already known Judas Priest from Kevin and Greg from earlier in my life, a couple years. And so we were talking about them. He lent me a Judas Priest record. He lent me Turbo Lover. I had already been into Defenders of the Faith and Screaming for Vengeance. And so I'd known Judas Priest pretty well at that point, but Turbo Lover was okay. Wasn't one of my favorites as far as their albums go. It's a good album, but as far as their other albums go, I like a lot of their other albums better. And then, so I gave that back to him. He's like, "What'd you think?" I was like, "I liked it, but I don't know if it wasn't like hard enough for me or heavy enough or something." And he's like, "Well," he's like, "if you like hard and heavy," he's like, "you should check this out." And he handed me Master of Puppets. It was a tape. I remember exactly where we were standing. We were standing underneath an apricot tree where we used to play baseball. And I just looked at the cover and I was like, okay, well, that looks different than anything I've seen. That brown and orange cover stands out wherever you see it, because that color structure wasn't, usually albums were kind of flashy or had some crazy cool, like an Eddie on the front, had some kind of crazy cool mascot or something. This was just a couple crosses in a military graveyard on a brown and orange background. But I thought, okay, I'll check it out. Soon as I put it in, that the Mexican guitar beginning of Battery, I was like, oh, what's this? And you could feel even that felt heavy, felt hard, felt different. And of course, when Battery kicked in, I went crazy. So I was like, okay, this is what I've been looking for. This is what I've been searching for. So Tim was the one that lent me that record, and we were really good friends. We spent a lot of time together. We played a lot of sports together, and he had a fort inside of his barn. We would go up there and we would have snowball fights and again, doing stuff that you don't want the parents to see, that I shouldn't have been doing ever, smoking cigarettes and stuff like that, but especially at such a young age. But I digress. That was Tim, and so he had recently passed away. This is a couple months ago now, probably 2 or 3 months. And when I heard, I was home by myself. It was right after work. So I cracked open a beer and I put on some metal, because that's what we do. And I was just thinking about him, and I was playing all old school metal. I've got a bunch of different mixes, and I was playing all old school metal. And my wife came home and I hadn't told her yet. And then Wasted Years came on at the exact same time. And I started like I was going to sing along with it, and then I just lost it. There's so much feeling in this song. And like I said, it transcends time and space. And it took me back to when he was still alive, and to when he was someone that I looked up to. And he was someone that I respected. I respected his opinions. He was an anti-bully kind of guy. And he had actually stuck up for me a couple times. And you know, it was times where I didn't really need someone to stick up for me, but he did. And he stopped me from getting in fights, and you know, just was there for me through a lot. And Stranger in a Strange Land. I'm sorry, Wasted Years was the song that came on. And Wasted Years just took me back and just had me thinking about him, and I just lost it, but it felt good. And it felt good for me to get that out. And like I said, and like I've said it many times, music, this type of music particularly, is a good place to go to put your feelings and to A, escape from your feelings, B, to face your feelings, C, to get rid of your feelings. You can do all that. You can put it all into this. And so that's what I did. And that was Wasted Years. But again, back to Somewhere in Time, the album. So Stranger in a Strange Land, is just another great song, killer tune on this album. And I would say my top three favorite songs on this album are Caught Somewhere in Time, Wasted Years, and Stranger in a Strange Land. Sorry. The next song after that is Deja Vu. Again, it's got that chorus compressed sound. It gives me a kind of a prog rock kind of feel. A lot of prog rock have that lead with the chorus on it, the high notes, and then they'll have the bass kind of rumbling through there. The song does get pretty proggy. Actually, there's some great leads, and the guitar tones are excellent. And I love the Feel Like I Did It Before, the way that it's harmonized. And Deja Vu, again, it's feeling. This is another song that kind of has to do with time. Like most of the songs on this album, it has to do with time. You feel like you've been here before. You felt like you've done something before, and you're doing it again. It's something that everyone can relate to. I think it's pretty much happened to everybody. And I know it's happened to me. It hasn't happened to me a lot lately, but it has happened to me in the past. One of my friends used to tell me, he was a football player, and he said every time he got a concussion, which was a lot, he played football in the 80s and early 90s. So every time he got a concussion, he said he could tell he had a concussion because he got deja vu. And so it's just feeling like something happened before. It's a French word. I don't know exactly what it translates to. I would guess it translates into something like feeling like this happened before. But another great song. Again, the harmonized vocals. Bruce harmonizes with himself a lot. They'll do multiple vocal tracks, and oh man, this dude can sing, and it is a treat listening to his voice. And especially when they do the multiple tracks and he's harmonizing with himself, and you can hear his voice carry over through many different octaves, many different tones. And there's something really, really tough about his vocals somehow, even though he doesn't do any kind of growling or grunts or low, like guttural. He doesn't do any of the guttural vocals, but just a cool guy. Bruce is a really cool guy. He's in great shape. He's a pilot. He's, like I said, he's operatically trained singer. He's a fencer. I think he was a professional fencer. So he's an athlete. And you can just imagine trying to keep up with this guy in the band. So everyone in this band, they're getting a little up there now in years, but you would never know it. And they're all in great shape, and they all have maintained that road status, that warrior mentality, the road warrior mentality. And the only way to do that is to just stay on the road, tour a lot, but also keep yourself in excellent physical and mental shape. And mental is important too, because you can lose it on the road. And there's a lot of bands, great bands, that have broken up and missed out on touring and missed out on shows and missed out on making great future albums that have broken up because of the road. The road will do that to you. It's not easy. Everyone thinks it's fun. Everyone thinks it's glamorous. It's fun at first, but then it gets real old when you're not sure when you're going to eat next, when you're not sure when you're going to sleep next, when you're tired, but you're trying to act like you're so into the music, which I'm not saying that people act like they're into the music, but you have to get to a certain level. And sometimes you're not at that level when you're getting ready to play live, but you have to at least look like you're at that level when you're playing live. Like I said, I've been in some bands and I've played some shows, and it's something where even if you have a headache, you still have to go off, even if your neck hurts or your back hurts. I mean, talk about necks. You look at guys like Dave Mustaine, you look at guys like Tom Araya that have had neck surgery, and they're still up there headbanging. I'm sure probably most, I think Kerry King had neck surgery too. Probably Chuck Billy, maybe. Pretty much is what I'm trying to say. Pretty much everyone that does that, Phil Anselmo, I think also has, he's had neck surgery. So pretty much everyone in that industry, probably more so singers, but also guitar players who do a lot of headbanging. It's not good for your spine. And it's something where you have to be in good physical shape, or the road will eat you alive, and that physical activity will eat you alive. So it's definitely something where you got to keep yourself in shape. And if you want to do it for many, many years, it's not easy, and it's not for everyone. Like I said, there's a lot of bands that have broken up because of the road, and Iron Maiden is not one of them. They lived up to their name, Iron Maiden. because they are definitely Iron Men, and they show it every time. And you know, it doesn't matter what their age is, they have performed the same as they always have. They always want to put on the best show that they can for their fans. I don't ever remember hearing anybody say, "Yeah, I was at this Iron Maiden show and they were a little off," or "I was at this Iron Maiden show and they just looked tired." Bruce wasn't running. Bruce probably runs 10 miles a show. He's running up and down the stage. He's running up and down the set pieces. He's climbing up on the set pieces. Plus, he's screaming his balls off the whole time. So again, this is not a just stand there and play, stand there and look at your shoes kind of a band. This is a very active, very, very physical band. And there's not a lot of guys that are younger than these guys that could do it. So again, props and kudos to Iron Maiden for continuing to give the fans what they want and what they have wanted for so many decades through continuous metal music. So the last song on this album, Alexander the Great, starts out, of course, with the War March, and then a little bit of a lead comes in. And then I'm not sure, there's a little bit of an atmospheric sound there. I'm not sure if that's keyboards or if that's a guitar, because you can do it on a guitar. You'd have to have some kind of processor or pedal to do it. It can be done. And it could be done back then too. So I'm not sure if that's keyboards that are creating that atmospheric sound or if that is the guitar. And then, of course, the lead comes in and, you get that head nod groove that runs through all their songs. You either want to, for almost all of Iron Maiden's songs catalog, you either want to nod your head real hard or bang your head or run around. But that head nod, that mid-pace groove right in the pocket, that's where you really feel Steve Harris's bass. They do that so well. They do that a lot. And then, of course, here comes Bruce with the history lesson in his lyrics. His lyrics are profound. They're intelligent, and it doesn't matter if he's singing about a time traveler or if he's singing about the devil or if he's singing about 2 minutes to midnight, or it doesn't matter what he's singing about. His vocals are always powerful, and it's never monotone. It's never like the same thing the whole way through. And some of the vocal scales that he does throughout, especially their earlier albums, I don't think he does quite as much as far as like the scales go and the vocal riffing. I don't think he does that quite as much anymore in some of their newer albums, but it's something that I really enjoyed. It actually, it's what kind of drew me to Iron Maiden, was the vocal harmonies and the vocal the scales. The way you could just say, like, take a track like Heaven Can Wait, you could just sing Heaven Can Wait, but he's Heaven Can Wait. He's a singer and he's a performer. So the album Somewhere in Time, like I said, one of my favorite albums. And and I'm just now kind of realizing that it's ironic that this album is called Somewhere in Time, because it really does stand the test of time, and it really does talk about just the nuances of time, and that time doesn't have to be what exactly we think it is. And maybe now, as I've gotten older and I've seen some of the advancements that we have made, maybe time travel is possible. I don't know. Who knows? But it's definitely an amazing, amazing album. It's an iconic album. It's definitely in my top 5 albums. Yeah, it's definitely in my top 5 albums of any band in any genre. I love this album. I can sing along with it. I can hum the guitar parts and the drum parts. I can play air drums too. So just an amazing, phenomenal album from amazing, amazing band. And they are still putting out music. But I'm excited to see what their next move is going to do, because when their older stuff is different than their newer stuff. And so I'm excited to see what they're going to do with some of their upcoming stuff. And definitely a band that has stood the test of time, and I think is going to be around for many, many more years to come. And so thank you, Iron Maiden, for what you've contributed to this genre of music. Again, I'm Irish J. Irons from Solid Steel Syndicate, the Solid Steel Syndicate podcast. I'm going to have some merch. I'm working on it right now. I say it every week, but I will have some merch, and I'll tell you how you guys can cop some of that and how you guys can join the syndicate. It's a family, it's a team. And so I would like it if you guys would join, and we can talk some metal. So again, thanks for listening. This is Irish J, Irons from the Solid Steel Syndicate podcast. And this has been the Somewhere in Time Iron Maiden's album reviewed. See ya. Oh, thanks for watching.